Hey, everybody. This is 2 nights in a row that you get a live feed from the Tree of Liberty Society. I'm Ben McClintock here with Rod Klingler. Hopefully the audio issues that we had yesterday with something between our processor and the YouTube feed, something happened there. But we pray that it is good audio today. Anyways, feel free to put your questions and your comments in the chat. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Tonight is in preparation for next week. So next Thursday, come back, same bat time, same bat channel, Thursday, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. We're going to be going into some brand new, just some bombshell stuff on the second chapter that is gaining more momentum because of the work we're doing here at the Tree of Liberty Society about Skull and Bones. But in preparation for next Thursday, I really wanted to just give you some background. What's the organization? Because everybody knows about, well, everybody, people that know that Skull and Bones exists knows that it's at Yale. And so that's really the foundation of where it starts before we get into the stuff at the University of Utah chapter that we're going to be getting into. And we have other videos on Skull and Bones here on the channel. We had one a while back that really covering the stuff we're going to cover tonight, but it was removed, and so we're going to be covering that stuff. I just really want to lay that groundwork of what is the organization, what are its aims, what's its history, who are the people involved, how do they accomplish the things that they accomplish. And so really that's really what I want to get into tonight as that groundwork, that foundation for what we're going to be covering next week. So check out those other videos we've done on Skull and Bones at the University of Utah, religious leaders and whatnot. Because next week it's going to be huge. Next week, really, you're going to want to bring everybody you know, everybody that cares about this kind of stuff. You're going to want to spread the word on next Thursday's meeting far and wide. Everybody's going to want to know about next week. I mean, Rod, I don't know if I could oversell what's going to be going on next week. Am I wrong?
No, man, you're 100% right. That's what I was saying. People don't have any idea.
Crazy. So let's get right into it, and I just want to talk about what is the Skull and Bones Society. And we have here the best source for details on Skull and Bones. We have America's Secret Establishment, an introduction to the Order of Skull and Bones by Anthony Sutton. He did, if you want to know about the foundations, its organization, that book is really where you need to go. And reading is essential. We're only going to be able to really just scratch the surface in this video of what you can get into if you actually read, right? So you can get so much more information about a topic when you read. So this is where you want to go on that. So there's some things about that led up to the author's death that I find interesting. There's nothing conclusive, but I think they're interesting nonetheless. The original publisher of America's Secret Establishment stopped publishing the book. And so Trine Day Publishing is formed for the specific purpose of publishing America's Secret Establishment. And then all of a sudden, two strangers move in upstairs in this apartment complex where Sutton lived. And then all of a sudden, Sutton dies of natural causes. So we're not claiming that those two people murdered him, but it is interesting that 2 weeks after they moved in is when he dies. And then all of a sudden, out, right? They move out. What's that, Rod?
They move back out. That's what I was going to say. Exactly.
Yep, they move back out. Very, very interesting coincidence.
Yeah. Coincidence, yeah. Natural causes.
So we have William Huntington Russell and Alfonso Taft are the two founders of the Skull and Bones Society. And we have Russell. He joined a secret society in Germany when he was going to school there, called the Totenbund, and which is also called the Gateway of the Dead or Brotherhood of Death, and is a branch of the Bavarian Illuminati founded by Adam Weishaupt. Russell and Taft, they formed Skull and Bones with the support of Yale's faculty in 1833. And the organization is oriented to the postgraduate outside world. So it's not just about and we're going to really get into this, is some people will dismiss this as it's just a fraternity. They're just a bunch of frat boys doing goofy stuff, and then they're done with it. No, the organization is oriented to their activities after they leave school. This is not an organization that is just about, hey, let's just make sure these kids have something to do when they're in college. It's for the rest of their life.
Yeah, this is definitely not Animal House. This is the reason that they're doing this in their senior year is specifically, like you said, to orient them towards whatever it is they're going to move on to next. Yeah. And I think we'll have some examples of that as we continue our conversation tonight here.
Absolutely. So the order members meet annually at Deer Island at the St. Lawrence River. This is in New York State. So the organization, the initiation, the quote, I'm quoting from the 1940 initiation. The new man is placed in the coffin, carried into a central part of the building, their tomb, which is there at Yale. New man is chanted over and reborn into society. So we have just tons of satanic counterfeits of Christianity, right? You have people, when they're baptized, they're reborn as into the body of Christ. These people are reborn into this skull and bones society. Then they're removed from the coffin and given robes with symbols on the robes. A bone with his name on it is tossed into the heap at start of every meeting. And the initiates are plunged naked into a mud pile. And they also have a new name that they are given as a part of this. Lots of theme of death and rebirth. They lay naked in a coffin. The initiation further, they must confess while they're laying naked in this coffin their sexual history. The patriarchs, meaning the people that from the previous class, they're dressed as skeletons and they act as wild-eyed lunatics. They howl and they screech at these new initiates. And the initiates are required, again, to wrestle naked in a mud pile. And the initiation, by those that have been a part of it, it's considered a harrowing ordeal. So we look at just one example of, this is from the University of Utah initiation, where it led to their insanity. An individual, while being initiated into Skull and Bones, goes temporarily insane. So it's a harrowing experience to such an effect that the individual goes insane. We'll get more into that next week, so make sure you come back next week at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. The organization, upon initiation, the member is given a new name. They're called Knight so-and-so. And then the former year Knights, they're patriarchs. So they're patriarch so-and-so, whatever their new name is. The order clothes the newborn knight in its own special garments, implying that henceforth he will tailor himself to the order's mission. Okay? More satanic counterfeits going on. They are sworn to secrecy as to what goes on in the organization. And they are given a large lump sum of money, a grandfather clock, and loans if needed to prevent a down-on-his-luck member selling his secrets. So they don't want all of a sudden this guy has just, blown all of his relationships, burned all of his bridges, and so now he is down on his luck, can't get a job, and so he's like, hey, I can get rich if I sell all the secrets. No, they make sure and take care of them financially, so that way in the situation where they are, between, hey, I've got to sell these secrets to survive, or they're going to, provide the means for me. They're going to provide the means for that individual. Go ahead.
It's really interesting to notice all of the religious aspects that are here, right? I mean, you've got robes, you've got the new name, you've got the big questions for religion are, where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going when I die? Right. So you've got this obsession with death as well, which fits right into that context. But it's interesting when you think about all of these things in that context of this is really a fraudulent religious activity that's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not just something you do with your friends for fun,
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's an important thing to point out. So then we go on, and the organization, the initiation process is essentially a variation of brainwashing or encounter group processes. This is individuals that, looking up from the outside, looking at the text of the initiation, and what's really going on is brainwashing them to be able to accept what's really going on. So the ritual is designed to mold. Go ahead, yeah.
Well, that part about the encounter groups, I thought that was really interesting as well. For anybody that knows anything about this, or if you know anything about encounter groups, part of that is, again, it's pseudo-religious. You've got people making confessions to one another in the group, which is part of, you mentioned that part already, right? When they were in the coffin?
Yeah.
When they're confessing their their sexual sins. You did cover that, yeah. Exactly. And that's a big part of that encounter group setting, where you've got this pseudo-religious aspect of people confessing their sins to one another, to somehow make each other feel better. But then now everybody knows each other's secrets, right? And then I think that's part of that bonding in the encounter groups, but also here, because what happens then is you're going to keep each other's secrets, right? You know all my dirt, I know all your dirt, and therefore neither one of us is going to dare leave because somebody is going to expose us.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you. The ritual is designed to mold establishment zombies to ensure continuation of power in the hands of a small select group from one generation to another. So that's Anthony Sutton from the book I mentioned from the beginning tonight, talking about that. The goals of the Order of Death: they want to change society to accept and adopt the New World Order. They want to heavily restrict individual freedom. That's really what they're all about. Their focus is on society and culture. So in the Tree of Liberty Society, our focus is also on society and culture. We're trying to build people, to get people to change, to behave in a way that the Founding Fathers said is necessary to a free people. And so we're trying to build a culture of freedom, whereas the members of Skull and Bones are trying to build a culture that will help ensure and help us to enter into this totalitarian New World Order. So it's and working on it through political means, economic means, education, of course, and the culture. So you wonder why every June and every February all of these businesses are going around where they are just all of a sudden on social media, their profile pictures are all of a sudden with the rainbow sodomite flag, and all of those types of things at certain months of the year, because they're a part of this and they're trying to shift the culture in that direction. And so we see that in the schools, we see that in the political realm, and moving us in that direction. So,
well, how often in real life do you get everybody jumping on the same bandwagon all at once, right? That doesn't happen in real life. It's so it's right out of a scripted, like a Hollywood script. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, we're doing the same thing. We're all on board with this nonsense.
Isn't that an amazing coincidence? So, and I cover this more in my book Invasion, so I encourage you to go check that out as well. So this is just a picture of some of the classes of the individuals in the Skull and Bones at the university, at Yale University.
Robes with...
So we go back to we have this book called The War on Light, The Destruction of the Image of God in Man Through Modern Art, by Margaret Stuckey, and she says the opposite of the mask is the skull. The face of the person is a fleshy skin worn between the two. People who deny the person as made in the image of God directly and individually created and loved by him will seek either of these exits to being truly human: the mask which covers the mortal man, or the skull which is left after mortal man has departed. Primitive minds who have not yet found God and sophisticates who have rejected him desire the mask and the skull. And so it's really interesting, right? This idea when we saw, especially during 2020, 2021, 2022, where you had this unified message from academia, from businesses, from politicians, where you all have to wear the mask. And so just like we see like in the Super Bowl and other public venues where they're trying to get the public engaged in their ritual, this is really where they were trying to get us all engaged in their satanic ritual.
And so if you combine that with the Super Bowl halftimes and all that,
yeah.
all the Hollywood stuff and the music artists with all the rituals and things as well, I think that's all the same. Like you said, get moving us all into the ritual aspect of this.
Yeah. So in the comment, Becky asks, what does that mean with COVID? Well, COVID was a ritual. Really, it wasn't. We have the aspects of it that it was about control and seeing what they could get away with, but it was really a foundational part of it was getting the populace engaged in the ritual, because you saw what happened was as the masses engaged in this ritual, the masses were really in a trance where it didn't matter how much facts and data were presented to individuals. It didn't matter because the ritual had entranced them to accepting this, the arrows in the supermarket, the masks, the COVID didn't, get in, the fake pandemic didn't get into the stores before 8:00 at night. And so they had to close at a certain time because, that's when the virus got out. And so it was just this mass psychosis or not a psychosis, it was a ritual. And so they were under this spell where people were fighting anyone that didn't participate in the spell.
I want to say too that to the point that of the quote that you were just reading, there's a masking of the identity, right? I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Well, the masking of identity is essential while you're getting what you need. Masking the individual is an essential part of that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So years ago, after they did a remake of Planet of the Apes, and Helena Bonham Carter was in that, and somebody interviewed her, and she said she was talking about naughty things people were doing, inappropriate things while they were in costume, and she said a costume or a mask is a license to misbehave. And during COVID, when they're forcing everybody to hide their identities, right? I was living up in Rexburg, Idaho, and they actually had some creep who was putting on his COVID mask, and then he was sneaking into the girls' dormitories, and they were waking up with him standing at the foot of the bed. And as far as I know, they never found him because even though they had him on all the cameras in the hallways and things, they had no idea what he looked like because he was wearing the stupid mask.
Holy cow, that's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep. And so, yeah, they want you to, that's another, that is obviously another aspect of it. You are willing to do because especially if you're under that spell, you have that mask on your face, you're going to engage in just the, debauchery and accept all of the draconian, immoral rules that they wanted to put on you. All of a sudden, using cash was, going to make everybody die. They, for what, all of a sudden, all the change in the world goes away. All of these things that are just ridiculous on its face, everybody just accepted with and if you questioned any of it, you were an insane person. And I remember, getting all kinds of attacks and hate phone calls and hate emails saying that I was a biological terrorist and things along those lines because this mass psychosis was so strong.
Yep. We heard that in person, actually. I remember we went to a protest at the Capitol in Boise, and we were all standing outside talking about how the whole thing was just, fake, and they didn't have the right to be forcing everybody to do things, staying home, not going to church. And some lefty was driving by, and they stopped their car, and they yelled at everybody, at a specific person standing by the street. But then they spit on them and said, "I hope you die," basically hoping that they were giving them COVID. That was what they were expressing there.
Yep. Yeah,
Just
you
ridiculous.
believe the mass psychosis, or you should die.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we continue on to just learning more about the Skull and Bones Society. Again, going back to Anthony Sutton's book, there are many satanic aspects of the order. The order has a long-standing and significant links to the relatively small Unitarian Church. In fact, former President William Taft, whose father co-founded the order, was president of the Unitarian Association in its time. And Cumby identifies the link between Hitler and the New Age movement, and former research by this author linked the order to the founding and growth of Nazism. So there is direct linkage between National Socialism, the New Age movement. The book, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, is just a fantastic read. I can't over encourage you to read that book, but all of these things with the Skull and Bones, with the New Age movement, this is all about building socialism and destroying the order that God has set up.
I also believe that Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow is available on the Internet Archive,
It is.
archive.org.
Yep, archive.org.
May not be
Most
able to find it
significant.
in
Go
person,
ahead.
but-
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I'm just saying you might not be able to find a hard copy of that, but you can find it on archive. Find a PDF or something and read it.
Yep. Most significantly, Cumby states that the New Age movement plans to bring about a new world order, which will be a synthesis between the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and the United States, as we continue to see today, where people think that the Soviet Union fell. Well, they became so-called freer, and we've become more socialized. We're more and more centralized of government, where when this book was written, right, there was no Obamacare, right? That there was no national health care, which is a plank of the Communist Manifesto. There were a lot of things in the Communist Manifesto and the planks of socialism that were not implemented yet, and we have moved further towards that. And so that merger, where we are all politically unified, is even further down the road. So they are that we can't say that that's outdated. We can say, oh, look how far-seeing that they actually were. Finally, Cumby points out that the Antichrist and satanic aspects are woven into the cult of the New Age movement. So I would hope that anyone involved in the New Age movement would understand the connections it has to the New World Order and think twice about it.
Well, like you mentioned, the Communist Manifesto and all that, under communism, there's no God but the state, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same under the New Age movement as well, where you've got touchy-feely, crystals and this and that, and yay, I'm happy because I'm meditating and whatever, but you do whatever the state says because there's no God higher.
Exactly. Yep. So the Skull and Bones has similarities in its structure with the Bavarian Illuminati, which would make sense because its founders were members of a branch of the Illuminati in the 1800s. And as we look at that, we see that they were both originated in Germany. The Illuminati was founded at the University of Ingolstadt, and they recruited heavily among students, which we see with the Skull and Bones, is the chapter of a secret society founded at Yale where it recruits its members. Both utilize secrecy. Both organizations swear their members to secrecy. Both are to refuse to discuss even their membership. And I'm going to show you later on video of individuals that were their membership was brought up in public, and they do this thing. They refuse to discuss even their membership, and they move on. This is again quoting two different members of the Illuminati writing letters to each other. Quote, "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always covered by another name and another occupation." End of quote. So that's why you see all these different names. Right? When an organization is exposed, they throw the name away and they do something else. Both use their power and influence to benefit, of course, their fellow members. Going back to that letter, both use their power and influence to benefit fellow members. Quote, the power of the order must surely be turned to the advantage of its members. All must be assisted. They all must be preferred to all persons otherwise of equal merit. Okay. That's why we see a lot.
One,
yeah, go ahead.
That last one is super, super important to understand in the conversation that we're having right here. You might want to read it again because it's really, really important.
The power of the order must surely be turned to the advantage of its members. All must be assisted. They must be preferred to all persons otherwise of equal merit. So the merit is irrelevant. They are going to promote their own. They are going to put their own in positions of power. And this, hopefully, people, you can remember this because this is going to tie in closely to what we cover next week. Right, Rod?
Exactly. Yes. Huge. Yep. Take notes.
Take notes. So Adam Weishaupt, again, he is quoted talking about concealment and cover-up. He says, a cover is always necessary. In concealment lies a great part of our strength. Hence, we must always hide ourselves under the name of another society. Going on again, we see they're related to other secret societies, right? We have Scroll and Key at Yale, Wolf's Head also at Yale, Owl and Key at the University of Utah. And sometimes, people will say, well, it can't be that big of a deal or they wouldn't talk about it in their autobiography. Well, George W. Bush talks about it in his autobiography. He says, my senior year, I joined Skull and Bones, a secret society so secret I can't say anything more. It was a chance to make 14 new friends. Now, as we've looked at their initiation process, what their goals are, what their aims are, how they operate, it's more than just making some buddies, right? And or what's he saying about these new friends that he's made?
I'm sorry, but the way that's gaslighting, if ever there was gaslighting.
Yeah.
You get together in secret, you do these horrendous rituals that we haven't really touched on very much, all these really satanic things. And really it was just because we wanted to have tea parties and biscuits together, right? That's nonsense.
We just wanted some buddies to hang out with, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't got into a lot of it because, I wanted to kind of keep it PG-13. And we've covered it in other places. And so I think it's
true. Yeah.
No need to dwell on the disgusting and the horrible when it's available. And there's other videos. Encourage you to check out. We have this playlist on Skull and Bones. Encourage you to go check that out. So there have been several presidents that have been members of Skull and Bones. And in 2004, there were two people that were Skull and Bones members that were running for president. Which really so you had John Kerry, who was the Democrat candidate, and you had the George W. Bush, who was the Republican candidate. And so let's just play this clip from Meet the Press, where they were both on, and what they said when the topic was brought up.
What happened to Skull and Bones, the secret society?
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
on.
sure they are. I don't know. I didn't see the rest.
Number 322. Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret. Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code? I wish there were something secret I could manifest. 322, secret number? There are all kinds of secrets.
All kinds of secrets. So I want to kind of just parse down some of the things that are going on there.
Hey, Ben, we're actually not getting any audio on that.
Oh, well, on the stream it did. I don't know if you didn't get that. Because you're on Zoom, you didn't get that. But it's on the audio.
Oh, I apologize.
You're good. So, he just like we talked about in the previous slides, when it's brought up, they just like we're moving on. We're not talking about it. lots of secrets. We can't discuss them. So many secrets we can't discuss. I wish there was something secret I could tell you, but hey, let's move on. And George Bush is like, hey, I'm not gonna lose. And essentially, what we see there is an important thing for us to understand about selections, also known as elections, but they're not. They're selections. They don't care. Once you get to that point at the top there, they don't care which one of them wins. They have manipulated things to make the choice anybody that they're acceptable with. People during the time, I remember in 2004, the idea to your average normie out there that they didn't care if George Bush or John Kerry won, right? That was just they people couldn't fathom that, because CNN was just hated George Bush, and so that means George Bush must have been awesome. And so this psychological manipulation that they play with us to make us think that. But look at whoever won, Skull and Bones would have won. Basically, in every election, whoever wins, the New World Order wins. And so we need to understand that aspect. And so we're focused on solutions that actually work as opposed to voting harder.
I think that harkens back to the masks conversation as well, right? Because you've got Bonesman A with the Republican mask and Bonesman B with the Democrat mask, when behind they're Skull and Bones with their own agenda.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All right, let's go back to just going through the presentation. So this is an important aspect to understand, is that this isn't a bunch of different conspiracies. This is one conspiracy with many tentacles, many arms that are doing different parts of the work to implement the conspiracy's program. And so I think that is very key. And in Anthony Sutton's book, he kind of breaks down that structure of understanding the kind of outer layer of the conspiracy being these, round table groups like the Council on Foreign Relations or the Trilateral Commission, or in England you have their round table groups and whatnot. And then you're kind of getting deeper and deeper into the core. And that Skull and Bones is a deeper part of the core of this single conspiracy with different tentacles. This is deeper. This isn't an outer layer of the conspiracy. This is a deeper part of the conspiracy. It's not at the core, but it's at the inner. It's very core-like. It's close to the core of the conspiracy. It's very deep into it. And then we look at how they influence society. Just looking at three quarters of the organization of its members, you have very close to equal proportions of its members go into law practice, go into education, being teachers, professors, go into business, owning businesses and being CEOs and that type of thing, getting into finance and industry. And so they're not like all focused on one body. They're getting their tentacles. This tentacle is getting its tentacles into every aspect of society to make sure that all these different industries are implementing and bringing the populace, the culture at large, into line with their agenda. And then we see the conspirators, fellow bonesmen, right? The Democrats and the Republicans, they're all unified and telling us how great and safe and effective this jibby jab is, and how much it's a literal godsend, and all of the things that making sure that they're unified and getting us all together to accept the jibby jab. Business Insider in 2015 talked about Skull and Bones members. Talked about Howard Taft, who was then the president. He was in the class of 1878. Walter Camp in the class of 1880. Lyman Spitzer, 1935. Potter Stewart, 1937. McGeorge Bundy, class of 1940. I know you did some research. You want to talk to us a little bit about McGeorge Bundy there, Rod?
I can, yeah. As a matter of fact, So he, after being at Skull and Bones, went on to be National Security Advisor to JFK and Lyndon Bates Johnson. He was president of the Ford Foundation, which I think is interesting because he also became a scholar in residence at the Carnegie Corporation. And those of us who grew up like in the 80s and stuff may recall every time you watch anything on PBS, everything you watch was sponsored by or funded by what? The Ford Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation, right?
Yep. Yep.
So they're behind this messaging that's going out. But he also was on in the CFR and was in. I mentioned he was in Kennedy's administration. So he did a whole bunch of things. There's other things I didn't mention as well, but there was a lot of influential positions that this one guy moved between from one thing to the other.
That most of us have never even heard of.
Yeah.
He wasn't president, so we don't know about him.
Exactly. And with a name like McGeorge for your first name, you'd think people would remember that. It's like a bad McDonald's joke, you know?
Never trust a guy with 2 first names and 2 last names, right? So going back to this, what the Business Insider said, these were like the 13 most influential businessmen that were in Skull and Bones. You look at George Herbert Walker Bush, class of 48. William F. Buckley Jr., class of 1950. What? He's a conservative, man.
Conservative. Yeah.
If you think William F. Buckley was a conservative, you got to read Jonathan McManus's book, Pied Piper of the Establishment. There's a video talk that he gave you can find online as well. William F. Buckley's biggest piece of garbage, anti-conservative. He is just if you go to the dictionary and you look up controlled opposition, William F. Buckley's face is right there. So John F. Kerry, Frederick Wallace Smith, George W. Bush, Stephen Schwartzman, Dana Milbank, Austin Goolsby, 91. So in short, just the order is not just a frat house, like you said, right? That's not Animal House, the movie. It's not just an honor society. Oh, you guys are getting such good grades. Let's make you part of this order of death. The order is a secret society. The order members have positions of influence in all segments of society. The order has clearly satanic undertones and influences in its initiation. The goals of the order are the New World Order. So read more about it in my books. Go to the treeoflibertysociety.com. We've got a special bundle deal going on, discount to get all those. And, it's important for us to learn more. So those are some good resources for you to go grab to be able to learn more about the Skull and Bones Society and get you that primer before we get into things next Thursday. Next Thursday, again, I'm going to blow your mind, 7 o'clock next week. So, Rod, what are some other things that, some primer stuff to really, because next week, again, and as you look at the other videos we've done on Skull and Bones, it's important for us to understand and not to fall for the nonsense of it just being a fraternity and it's just an honor society. We've got to get that nonsense out of our head because it's a fat lie. It's garbage. These guys are it's crazy. I was talking to somebody else where they've got kids that are not exactly on the straight and narrow path that they would as parents they would say that, and they asked them if somebody said, hey, you're going to get rich and powerful if you go lay in this coffin naked with this guy and confess all your sexual sins, who wants in? And they're like, no. That's crazy. And so that even people that aren't strictly moral know that that's insane. And the origins of the organization, just all around, to just try to dismiss this as a fraternity and an honor society is madness, Rod.
Or to try and brush it up as a conspiracy, right?
Right.
One of the last things.
It is a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy theory.
Well, yeah, exactly right. At the end there, the last graphic that you had up talking about how their primary goal is the implementation of the New World Order.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back and touch a little bit on that whole process of like what they call tapping or whatever, like
Yeah.
bringing in the new initiates.
Yeah.
Um, they look for everything that I've read and everything for people that have written about this, and also people that were members, Bonesmen themselves. They are looking for the really ambitious people that want to make a mark in the world, right? These are the kind of people that they're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and for this reason, right? They've got goals they want to get implemented. They want to know that these are people that know how to get things done.
Right.
Now we had um, talked earlier in your Invasion Volume 2, there's a part that says the three-line Skull and Bones initiation ritual theme that has bound 3 presidents. The hangman equals death, the devil equals death, death equals death. So that's something that gets screamed at them during their initiation ritual. Then obviously you've got the skulls and the bones everywhere. Um, the descriptions that have been given by people that have broken into the tomb, which is their headquarters, there's skulls and bones everywhere as well. And also, I discovered today, I was doing a bunch of research and I kept seeing this Latin phrase come up. It says Dum vivimus vivamus. And I looked it up and it means while we live, let us live. So basically, it's kind of a carpe diem type of theme, which is, look, you're going to die, so get stuff done. That is what this whole thing is about. You're going to die, get things done. So they want these super ambitious people in here that they know are going to make something happen, whether it's like the list you gave earlier, politics, finance, education, or whatever. They've got these goals. They need to get met as quickly as possible. Get in here and let's get them done. We're going to help you do it. They've got a ton of money. I forgot to leave it up here, but if you look up the Russell Trust Association, which is the legal name for Skull and Bones, they won't tell you much, but it does tell you that as of just a couple of years ago, I think it was like $37 million in their trust fund. And that's just for tea parties, right? Or for beer parties.
We have a barbecue at Deer Island every year. We need millions of dollars. Hey guys, come on.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's nonsense. Yeah, that was big for me. Just looking at that whole focus, the focus on death. You are going to die. Let's get it done. I think that's a huge thing, and I think that's very telling as far as, again, the kind of people these are, because you're not. What are some other? There are other fraternities out there, right?
Yeah.
How many of those pop up in the top of J.P. Morgan all the time, or
right.
as president, or whatever? These people, there's only 15 of them every year,
right?
And yet they all seem to pop up at the top of all of these organizations. Everywhere there's power, there's a bonesman there.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see a lot of presidents from Kappa Kappa Kappa.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to put that in the comments. I like the comments that are in there so far. It's interesting what Becky said. Tapping is part of the New Age religion, and looking into that. So that'll be an interesting part. We see just this whole crossover of these Satanism as well as counterfeits, and so we need to make sure and understand the counterfeit aspect of it as well. But it's very interesting the overlay of the New Age movement and the satanic Skull and Bones.
I'd like to hear more about that, tapping in the New Age religion, because that's something I don't know anything about.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
That's what I asked Becky to do. So I guess she's looking into it. She'll get back with us on that. So
cool. One other thing I wanted to touch on was how they use the Hegelian dialectic. So we use that term all the time. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier, we touched on it a tiny bit, right? Where they control the Republican, they control the Democrat, and then it doesn't matter who gets in charge. But the reason for that is the Hegelian dialectic, their use of that, which is thesis, antithesis, synthesis, or problem, reaction, solution, right? Mm-hmm. So they put Trump in. He's they put Biden in. He's the problem. They put Trump in. He's the solution, right? And then those are both the extremes, they tell us. Now they have to present us with some fake middle ground that's actually where they want us to be. That's just pay attention. That's the process they use. We can tell you with confidence that that's what's happening because it's exactly what they've always done in the past. They do the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yep. And they make you think, that they gaslight you. Now it's clear. More and more people are seeing the fact that America is more and more fascist and socialist and communist. But in the early 90s,
Right.
when anybody would have said that, they'd be like, "You're crazy. Communism's dead. It's nothing to worry about. We, move on. This isn't the 50s anymore." And so they gaslight you into thinking that you're insane for thinking because the problem is solved. And so we've got to make sure, and we're actually principally based, and we're looking at the facts, and we understand how they work. So that way we're not fooled into this Hegelian dialectic that they mixed with gaslighting that they get us to go along with their program and fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Just it's like a whole nother level of the ritual that we were talking about in this this spell that everybody's under when these big things happen.
Yeah, somebody mentioned Scott Bessent in the chat.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention he actually belongs to one of the other Yale secret societies that's called Wolf's Head.
Mm-hmm.
Wolf's Head, and he mentioned it. You mentioned it, Ben, earlier.
Yeah.
He belongs to that group, and again, yeah, we have a report that's going to be coming out soon on the people that Trump has put into his cabinet, and all the screaming and yelling about draining the swamp. There's a little bit of show about that, but if you actually know anything about any of the people he's bringing in, he's filling the swamp double than above what it was before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Alrighty, so Skull and Bones, founded by a member of one of the Illuminati secret societies in Germany, brought to the United States with their goal to build the New World Order. And they put their members, it's not just in college, it's not a frat, it's not an honor society. They put their members all throughout different segments, key segments of society, to make sure that they can get everybody in on the program to build the New World Order. So you understand the program, you understand who's involved in it, you're going to say, oh, they're pushing it, maybe there's something else going on. So make sure you stay tuned next week. Come back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, Thursday, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. We have a huge bombshell talking on what that really means, on the dirt, when we get down to the nitty gritty. So 7 o'clock right here, Tree of Liberty Society. Make sure that you're getting our text alerts, your email alerts. Go to treeoflibertysociety.com and get on our list, the email alerts. And we will see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Mountain. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Good night.
Okay. What'd you think? Oh, you're done.